Lions lose Ben Johnson. Lions lose Aaron Glenn. Lions lose Frank Ragnow, but they keep this guy.
You are Locked On Lions, your daily Detroit Lions podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's happening, everybody? Another week of Locked On Lions right here on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today is Monday, June 23rd to Tuesday, June 24th. Thanks for being with us. Thanks for making us your first listen. Thanks for checking us out wherever you get your podcast. That includes our everyday listeners and viewers that watch us on our Locked On Lions YouTube channel. Thank you to our everydayers. If you want to be a call of the day, we are going to play one of those later on in the show. One of our everydayers checking in from internationally later on in the show. But if you want to be our call of the day, you can be by going to www.speakpipe.com. That's speakpipe.com/Derry, DERY podcast page. Leave a voicemail. Try to keep it under a minute. Don't swear. And we might play it, and it might be our call of the day on the program. Locked On Lions today brought to you by our friends at FanDuel. Right now, new customers can get $150 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. Congratulations to the Oklahoma City Thunder. They are the NBA champions. Last night's Game 7, let's be honest here, that sucked. That just absolutely sucked. When Halliburton went down with that injury, sounds like a torn Achilles. That just sucked the life out of everything. I mean, Game 7, NBA Finals, Tyrese is off to a 9-point first quarter. We're hitting 3 threes, falls to the ground. Thunder, give them credit. They were the best team all year and everything else. But shouts to them. Also got to give a birthday shout out today on this Monday to the legendary 4-year-old James Harrison Frazier. Happy birthday, Jay. 4 years old today. All right, coming up on the program today, I have a Dan Campbell topic that I've got to get into. I heard Mark Schlereth, Fox Sports NFL analyst. He's also on one of those Fox Sports 1 shows that nobody watches. But Schlereth had a great point on the Rich Eisen show where Rich took a break from talking about Michigan for 5 minutes and actually had Mark Schlereth on to talk about the NFL. Schlereth was asked about teams that are Super Bowl or bust. The Lions were on that list. And Schlereth brought up something about our head coach. And I want to bring that up and play the audio clip coming up in a second here. Also, Amon-Ra St Brown on the St Brown Brothers podcast, taking some shots at Kansas City. Remember, the Leos, got my schedule here. The Leos will be in Kansas City, take on the Chiefs Sunday, October the 12th. For Sunday Night Football, ARSB going ham on Kansas City. We've got Jared Goff here in Detroit. Coming up next month, the quarterback show on Netflix, which he's going to be a part of, which is going to be cool. We're just lucky to have him, and I'm going to explain to you why, because there's another quarterback situation in another city that is just an absolute circus. And a call of the day as well, as I mentioned before, right here on Locked On Lions. Brett Whitefield, fantasy points. Hopefully tomorrow. We're penciling that in to have Brett on the show. Get a little geeky with Brett. We love talking to Brett Whitefield from Fantasy Points tomorrow on the program. Working on some other stuff for this week. Likely Nate Burleson after the 4th. We're working on that too with Nate's people, the CBS NFL analyst. All right, and entrepreneur. All right, so Dan Campbell. Look, we're lucky to have Dan Campbell. Dan has been an amazing addition here in Detroit. He has taken this football team to heights that have not been seen in decades. And I think this is something that has not been talked about enough here with the offseason for the Leos, losing the likes of Frank Ragnow to retirement. Ben Johnson's gone. Aaron Glenn's gone. The Lions have new coordinators, and some people are freaking out. But you know who the Lions did retain and do have? They've got their head coach. And Mark Schlereth, who I love, the former Pro Bowl offensive lineman, the Super Bowl winning offensive lineman and guard with the Broncos for many years, now Fox Sports NFL analyst. He was talking to Rich Eisen on the Rich Eisen show last week, and Dan Campbell's name came up. Take a listen to this. This is courtesy of the Rich Eisen show.
What about Detroit? Last year, that was their sense. Last year, but not anymore because they lost their coordinators, or what do you think?
No, I think you still have to. I think one of the things that people don't talk about, and I don't know if you and I talked about this or not, but like Dan Campbell, Dan Campbell plays the role of meathead well, and I don't think people really understand how smart and how good a coach he is, and what an offensive guy he was. Remember when he came to Detroit, like it was. I don't want to say begrudgingly, but it took a little time to give the offense over to Ben Johnson, and they worked that in unison. And Ben is incredible now in Chicago, but Dan had a lot to do with how that offense has been established and the way they run that offense. So I give them a lot of credit on that. I'm with you on Detroit. Detroit is so talented. Now they lost, the interior of their offensive line. That scares me a little bit. Frank Ragnow decides to retire. There's going to be some mixing and matching there, some new guys playing. And you could make a very compelling argument that last year they were, one or two as far as offensive lines is concerned in the National Football League from just a talent perspective and the way they play the game. So that's a big turnover to me. They should get so healthy on defense. They should get so many players back on defense, Aiden Hutchinson and that seems to hopefully rectify itself, so to speak, even with a new coordinator.
Mark Schlereth on the air with Rich Eisen, and the discussion was the teams that are Super Bowl or bust. And the Lions did make that list, as Rich said to Mark, what about Detroit? And I think Schlereth agrees that the Lions are talented enough to be a Super Bowl or bust type of team. Is it time for the Lions to finally get there? They made the NFC Championship game 2 years ago. Last year, they ran into a very hot Washington team, and in a close game, of course, the Commanders just were too much for the Lions and the season ended. But Detroit won 15 games last year. And I'm here to tell you that I'm with Schlereth on this. I think Dan Campbell doesn't get talked about enough for how smart he is as a head coach. And as Stink pointed out, Dan's got this meathead approach. He's got this meathead persona. And there aren't enough people talking about how good of a football coach he is. It's always, Dan's a leader of men. Dan is an unbelievable guy in that locker room. The culture in Detroit, the players love him. He's a player's coach. We saw him on Hard Knocks a couple years ago. The guys just rally around him. But what people don't talk about is the strategic advantage that sometimes the Lions have with Dan Campbell on the sidelines because he just doesn't look the part. There's all of these nerdy, and I'm going to say it, there's a lot of nerdy coaches in the league. The analytical guys, the guys that have been, trained by the numbers, and they're maybe not as big and strong, and a former player, former tight end, like Dan Campbell is. They're look at the general manager. What's his name? James whatever in Jacksonville. The guy looks like he's a 28-year-old geek. Like he's running a football for an NFL franchise now. Maybe he'll do a good job. His last name escapes me, but you know what I'm talking about. All right. And a lot of these guys are now in that McVay, LaFleur, McDaniel type of mode. And here's Dan Campbell as a former player, and everybody thinks that the offense is going to take a step back because Ben Johnson's gone. And yes, Ben Johnson was named coordinator of the year last year. He's been the best offensive coordinator in the sport for 2 to 3 years. He's phenomenal. It was a phenomenal assistant coach. But I think Schlereth has a point. A lot of the offense as well ran through Dan Campbell. Dan Campbell was good with some of the design stuff that Ben Johnson came up with. Dan Campbell was the one who said, let's go for it and be aggressive on fourth down. Dan Campbell and Ben Johnson worked together in Miami years ago, and Ben worked under Dan and learned a lot from what Dan Campbell knows and thinks. So yes, there are going to be some people as we get closer to training camp next month. We start seeing the magazines hitting the newsstands and Barnes and Nobles, and you grab the football preview from Athlons and Sporting News and Lindy's. Do those still exist? Just bear with me, play along. And you see, Detroit second, Detroit third. It might be, the window might be closing. My very good old buddy, Robert Lee Parker. Yes, I'm bringing up Rob Parker. Apparently on his Fox Sports radio show recently, he said the Lions window's closed. That's vintage Rob, hating on Detroit, hating on everything. And I love Rob, but Rob's wrong. The Lions have a lot of young talent, and Dan Campbell's a damn good coach. He is. And I think he gave his coordinators and his assistants so much props and so much love because he's unselfish that I think we've got to remember he's still here and still our guy and has a really good offensive mind and really good coaching mind, period. It's not just culture, rah-rah, locker room, speech stuff. So let's give Dan some love and see what he does with John Morton as his new OC and how that works out. There's still a ton of talent on this team and on that offense. All right, coming up next, for those of you that are like, oh man, don't do anything dumb, don't say anything, no bulletin board material, Amon-Ra St. Brown provided some for the city of Kansas City and the Chiefs for October the 12th and the Lions-Chiefs game. We will explain coming up next right here on a Monday edition of Locked On Lions. But first, Locked On Lions brought to you by our friends at FanDuel. Summer sports are in full swing, and whether you're all about baseball under the lights, golf on the green, or high-stakes soccer action, FanDuel is the best way to make every game even more exciting. You're already following the action. Why not make it a little bit more interesting and thrilling? With FanDuel, you can get in on the game while your friends are getting sunburned at the beach. I got a bunch of friends, and everybody I know is on FanDuel. They track all their favorite matchups. The app keeps it fresh with new daily promotions and fun ways to bet. And it's easy to use, fast to get your payouts, and make even regular season games feel like must-watch events, right? Are you new to FanDuel? Well, new customers can bet just $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if your first bet wins. There are player props and things for the NBA draft coming up on Wednesday night. Check it all out at FanDuel. Open the FanDuel app today or visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get started. Got to give a shout out to another everyday listener of ours, Maddie Style. Congratulations to Matt, Ellie, the family. They know what I'm congratulating them for, but just great people. Maddie always checks out Locked On Lions. Our guy Scotty at Questionable Tees got me this Lions hoodie a while ago before the start of last season. Check out all their stuff, Questionable Tees. They've got great Lions gear as well. All right. So every single day, I always get caught up at the end of the day before I do the show on what's going on with the Lions. Is there anything I missed as I'm at my regular job, checking out Pride of Detroit and A to Z and Lions Wire and Justin Rogers and Free and News and everything. And I also Google Detroit Lions sometimes just to see if I don't miss anything. And I did catch today on Google, Lions wide receiver Amon-Ra St. Brown makes enemies of the Chiefs with his disparaging remarks about Kansas City on his podcast. I'm like, oh boy, what did he do? First and foremost, I'm not sure he's making enemies in Kansas City. I'm not going to overhype this, but I am going to bring it up because Amon-Ra did take a little bit of a shot at Kansas City. So he and his brother on their podcast last week, the St. Brown podcast, not St. Brown Brothers, St. Brown podcast, which comes out every Wednesday. He and his brother, Equinemius, they featured last week Jalen Noel, wide receiver for the Texans, who's also from Kansas City. He was a guest on the show. And Amon-Ra asked Noel about the culture change between the cities of KC and Houston. And Noel admitted that city-wise, Houston is a lot faster than Kansas City. And he said it's hot in Houston. Amon-Ra followed up by saying, the Lions wide receiver, quote, "I've been to Kansas City. I was there for the draft. I'm sorry. If you have money, I'm not living there after I get some money." Noel responded with, "You just got to know the right places to go." So Amon-Ra said he's not living there after he gets some money. And that was basically it. All right. There weren't a lot of other comments about it. but the blogosphere and everybody online is running with it, that St. Brown's taking the shots at the city of Kansas City. So basically he's like, if I wouldn't live there, is what he said. You know, it's funny. Amon-Ra with this show has gotten more vocal over the years. The first few years that St. Brown was on the Lions, he was kind of a quiet guy. He was kind of a careful guy with what he said. And now with that podcast and with his brother, he has taken some shots. He has been more opinionated on things. And they're a fun listen and watch. They do a good job. As far as his pot shots at Kansas City, well, again, my guess is that the Chiefs fans will get into it and kind of the week of October 12th and that game with the Lions, the Sunday night affair, remind everybody. I'm sure Kansas City media will remind everybody of what Amon-Ra said. But once the game starts, who cares? Okay. St. Brown is such a good player. This is not, this isn't going to the free throw line in a city that he just bashed where everybody's going to heckle him as he gets to the free throw line or boo him loudly. He'll get booed a little bit, but he didn't call the city a dump. It wasn't him going crazy. Yes, the headline on my YouTube backdrop is ARSB sounds off. Maybe I should have said sound off, but he took a little bit of shot at Kansas City. But I love how on the internet it's St. Brown making enemies with the Chiefs. It's like, look, he spoke his mind. He said he wouldn't want to live in Kansas City if he got some money. And the kid Noel from the Texans kind of defended the city, and that was it. So there you go. Very excited about the new quarterback special that's coming out with Joe Burrow. Kirk Cousins, again, he was on last year's show. And Jared Goff on Netflix coming out in early July. And today, a little bit of a preview came out online. If you type it into Google, you Google or on social media, you'll be able to see the trailer for the quarterback show, for quarterback with Joe Burrow, Goff, Jared Goff's wife, Kristen, is featured on there a lot. And so check that out and that trailer out. But we are so lucky to have Jared Goff as our quarterback here in Detroit. And the reason is not only is he a winning player, not only has he led the Lions the last 3 years to winning records, playoff wins, he's made the Pro Bowl, he's been effective, great rapport with his receivers and running backs and tight ends, and signed long-term. And there are plenty of other teams that would take Jared Goff in a second. And I get it. There are people that don't think he can win the big game. Was it Jeff Schwartz last year said, nope, I don't think Jared Goff can ever get them over the hump. Jared Goff did play in a Super Bowl, by the way, with the Rams many years ago and has been in the NFC Championship game with the Lions. Was it Jared Goff's fault they didn't go to the Super Bowl 2 years ago in San Francisco? No. I'm not putting that on Jared Goff. It was a team effort. There were a lot of things that happened. The Gibbs fumble, the Vildor play off his face mask, the decision-making by coaches, all of it played a role. But we're lucky to have Jared Goff because he is a top 10 quarterback in this league. I truly believe that. Top 10, top 12, whatever. Did anybody see the story today out of Cleveland where they're trying to find a quarterback? They've got 4 they're testing out. Kenny Pickett, Joe Flacco, who's 60? Dylan Gabriel, the rookie from Oregon, and yes, Shedeur Sanders. I think Shedeur Sanders is intriguing. I'm entertained by Shedeur Sanders. I think the kid's got some talent. But there's a reason he dropped to the 5th round, and in Cleveland, they're just hoping and praying, since they haven't had a quarterback in that town since the Lord Bernard Kosar. They're hoping Shedeur can be the guy. Well, today, it's been reported yet again, Shedeur Sanders has been found and caught speeding again. Pulled over in early June for going 91 in a 60. Today, he was pulled over, or yesterday was pulled over for going 101 miles per hour in a 65 mile per hour zone. 41 miles per hour. Oh, no, I think it was 101 in a 60. Yeah, 101 and a 60. 91 and a 65 the last time in beautiful and plush Strongsville, Ohio. Second time in a month, a guy trying to make the team, trying to be the leader of a football team, which is what the quarterback is, has been busted for speeding and going way past the limit. Like, what are you doing, dude? Like, could you imagine being a Browns fan? Could you imagine being in Tennessee, not knowing if Cam Ward's the guy? You thought Will Levis was going to be the guy. You're in Minnesota. You think J.J. McCarthy's the guy. You think, but you don't know. What's the quarterback situation in New Orleans, in Las Vegas, in Indianapolis, where they're deciding between Anthony Richardson and Gulp Daniel Jones? What about in New York? Do either the Giants or Jets have a quarterback? No, they don't. But we are lucky to have Jared Goff, and I know people bitch about him sometimes, but imagine being a Browns fan and your quarterback that's trying to win the job just keeps getting pulled over by the cops for speeding. Now, is speeding the worst thing in the world? Have we all done it? Yes. But twice now in a month, 91 and a 60, 101, or 91 and a 65, 101 and a 60. What are you doing? Like, stop. He's apparently drag racing with his girlfriend. All right, coming up next, call of the day. You can be our call of the day by going to speakpipe.com/Derry, DERY, podcast page. Hey, thanks for making Locked On Lions your first listen today. For your second listen, check out Locked On NFL Scouting. As training camps get closer and moves are being made, host Kyle Krabs and Joe Marino will make you the most informed NFL fan this offseason. Find Locked On NFL Scouting on YouTube or wherever you listen to your podcasts. All right, folks, it is about that time. It's I think we did a couple last week. Call of the day. Yes, we did. Call of the day is where you, the listener, get an opportunity to be on the air. And today, James Campbell is checking in internationally. One of our everydayers, James. Big game, James. We're checking in with him. He is our call of the day. Let's take a listen.
Hey, Matt. James Campbell calling from Sparwood, British Columbia. Everyday listener. Love the show. Go Lions. I'm calling about the next game record for teams that play the Lions and seem to have a losing record the next week. I can't recall what it is over the last 3 seasons, but I know it is very poor. Just wanted to get your thoughts on whether this is due to the physicality of the Lions, or is it more related to the teams really preparing to play the dominant Lions and kind of forgetting about the next game in the schedule? Thanks. Bye.
All right, thank you, James Campbell, checking in from Ontario, or British Columbia, excuse me. Love our Canadian friends. Oh, Canada, go for it. You know, the last year at the start of the season, if you recall, opposing teams from the Lions that had played the Lions the week before, the next week, I think they were 0 for their first 5 or 6. That any team that the Lions played, the next week they lost. And no, James, I don't think it's because they spent so much time focusing on Detroit the week before and prepping for the juggernaut Lions. I think it is because the Lions are so physical. The Lions beat you up. And that's the one thing, that's one concern I have going into this season is how good is that offensive line going to be? Mark Schlereth pointed out on the audio clip earlier in the show. What's the Lions offensive line going to look like? You've now subtracted Kevin Zeitler, a very good right guard, and Frank Ragnow, an all-everything center. Arguably the best center in the game. Arguably the best center in the NFC. Many believe Creed Humphrey of the Chiefs is the best center in football. Frank Ragnow was right up there. So how physical are the Lions going to be without Ragnow? But they are. And Aleem McNeil is going to be out the first couple of months. So I do believe that the Lions play such a physical brand of football and just wear on you. And, you know, a David Montgomery running over your defensive linemen and your linebackers, takes its toll the next week, right? It just does. And Ragnow and those guys coming off the football, a Penei Sewell. You watch Penei Sewell on a toss sweep to Gibbs around that right side or even to Montgomery, and you watch what Penei Sewell is doing in the open field and how he's just destroying people. There are games that I'll go back and watch and just kind of focus on Penei. Dude is just so physical, so physical. And I got news for you. When DJ Reader is healthy and he's such a big body, he can really cause a lot of friction up front on that defensive line. And Brian Branch is so physical coming up from that safety spot, just with that boomstick. He is phenomenal in the open field and taking people out, and is a very, very good and physical safety. So, yeah, I mean, and the Lions corners and how they played and the man-to-man and a lot of the hand-to-hand combat and the bump and run style, the man defense. Yes, I truly believe that the Lions are so physical that the week after, it takes teams longer to get their bodies back to feeling the way they should feel, and they get beaten. I do believe last year was the first 5 or 6 opponents that the Lions played. The next week they lost. But it's a great question from James, and you just hope this continues. You hope this is the way the Lions are playing. Physical, and they're playing so many talented teams. We talked about the schedule. You know, Green Bay, Baltimore, Cincinnati, Kansas City, Tampa, Minnesota's good. The Commanders, Philly, Packers again. Dallas always has talent. The Rams are loaded. These are really good teams, and it's going to take sometimes just tackle football to beat them. Blocking, tackling, and physicality. Lions have plenty of talent out on the perimeter too. But I love the physical style that they play. So, James, thank you for the question. A very good one. Brett Whitefield from Fantasy Points, scheduled to join us tomorrow. Always love talking Lions football with Brett. Thanks for making us your first listen, everybody. Checking us out wherever you get your podcasts. Have a great rest of your Monday. Stay cool if you can, and we'll see you again tomorrow.